Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar. This is Rank Higher, the changing face of SEO and Google. I first want to thank you for joining us today. I just want to make sure everyone can hear me. You should see a chat box on your screen and just let me know if the sound is all right. Great, thank you Jason, Lou, Chris, much appreciated. All right, well, looks like we're just a few minutes after 3 right now, so we want to get started. Everyone, please welcome our GigMasters co-founder, Mike Caldwell.
Thank you, Katie. How's everybody doing today? So we're going to talk about a little bit of SEO this morning, specifically how SEO has changed fairly significantly over the last couple years. I know we have a mix of existing members and some folks that are thinking about joining. I really want to first say a huge thank you to the existing members. I'm always so appreciative of the fact that you've chosen to be a member of GigMasters, and I can assure you we're all 35 of us are working hard to improve the service. So again, thank you so much for your membership. As Katie mentioned, we are broadcasting live here from our offices in Norwalk, Connecticut. It's about an hour's drive north of Manhattan. We are right next to the train track, so you may hear the roar of a train engine at some point during the webinar. Before I proceed, I wanted to just let everybody know I'm sort of gearing this for a general audience. I'm going to try to avoid being too technical on some of these SEO topics. If you're already an SEO expert, you may find some of this a little basic, but hopefully for the rest of you, you'll come away with some good ideas on how you can improve SEO for your website. Okay, let's dive right in here. So the times they are a-changin'. I think that pretty much captures the essence of the state of the SEO industry right now. Things really have changed fairly dramatically in the last couple years. But allow me to just reminisce for a few minutes about the good old days of SEO. And for us, that started back in 1997 when we launched the site. And really, things were pretty good for a number of years. So the good old days were probably for us from 1997 up until probably 2010. And as I say here in this slide, you could pretty much, put a lot of keywords on your pages, get some incoming links, and next thing you know, you would be ranking fairly highly in search. And it wasn't quite that easy, but that was the general state of things for a number of years. Then this guy comes along. I'm just curious if anybody knows who this person is. Okay, so this is Matt Cutts, and he is actually head of search quality at Google. Okay, so they bring Matt in, and his goal has been to clean up the search results in Google, to get rid of the spam that's in there, to get rid of the hackers that are trying to manipulate their rankings, really clean things up. So I'm sure many of you have heard of Panda and Penguin, and they cleverly named them after some cute little animals, but in reality those two Google updates have been quite dramatic. Panda came along in 2011, followed by Penguin in 2012. Again, their basic goal was to try to penalize the sites that are breaking the rules and folks that are not following Google's Webmaster guidelines. And really, SEO tactics that were perfectly acceptable for a number of years were suddenly no longer acceptable. Many sites, ourselves included, had to begin to unwind some of the tactics that were for many years perfectly fine and worked really well. Okay, so I really want to just jump right in here. What exactly is no longer acceptable in the new era of SEO, in the post-Penguin and the post-Panda world? First of all, buying links. Forget about it. There used to be a whole industry where you could go and pay for links and to help boost your rankings. That is no longer good. Do not even consider buying links from any site. And in fact, even getting free links from non-reputable sites is actually not a good thing. So in the past, it was just quantity of links which would help improve your ranking and search. but really quality of links is very important now. And so you're going to actually be hurting yourself if you have a link from a non-reputable site. So if a super popular porn site wants to link to your website, you don't want to do it. It's just not worth it. Number 2, do not stuff your pages with keywords just for the purposes of search. And when I say stuff your pages, I mean, again, the good old days, if you're trying to rank for, let's say, String Quartet Boston, you just put String Quartet Boston all over the page 1,000,000 times. The next thing you know, you're at the top of search, and they're really cracking down on that. Some of you may be familiar with page titles, H1 tags, things like that. We've really, as a company, gone back and started reducing what's called keyword density, and that basically means, how many times the same word is repeated on a particular part of your page, in a sentence on your site, and we've really tried to dial that back. Also, stuffing keywords into links, and so let me just try to explain this one a little bit. You may get a site that links to you, and you're trying to rank for the word wedding photographer. So you basically say to that site, look, I want you to link to my site, but I want the link text to say wedding photographer, and that way it will help me rank. And that stuff was perfectly acceptable. We had a number of reputable SEO firms advise us over the years to employ these types of tactics, and we have really had to change course on that and really not do that. Press releases, you don't want to feed those types of links in press releases. So basically, anything you're doing, if you think to yourself, okay, am I just doing this to rank in Google? Okay, that's when you have to stop and think, okay, maybe this is going to get me into some trouble. The fourth thing, as I list here, is what's called duplicate content. You don't want to repeat the same block of text over and over and over again from page to page. Why is this called Mad Lib spam? I did not make up that term. That is a term that is used in the industry. Many of you might be familiar with Mad Libs, where you take a sentence and you can just swap out certain words, and you want to avoid that type of technique. And I'll move on to the next slide and give you a really relevant example. So back in the day, we were trying to rank for, let's say, New York City DJ, but we're also trying to rank for New York City disc jockey, because maybe that's how some people search for it. And so sites like ours, you would have one page that would be optimized for New York City DJ, another page that would be optimized for New York City disc jockey. Definitely don't want to do that anymore, and Google is getting smarter and smarter, and let's face it, the only reason we were doing it was to rank. So now, we're being more natural about our pages, and we're not trying to do things just for the purposes of ranking. It's just a matter of time before Google is going to catch on. So you might be getting away with it now, but you want to basically dial back on these things now on your own terms, instead of waiting for Google to penalize you, and they will cut your traffic in half. So it's really something you want to pay close attention to. Take the time to do this now on your own terms. But there are 2 basic rules that still hold true in this new era of SEO. Number 1, content is still king. You guys have all heard of Wikipedia. You probably noticed that they rank at the top of most searches that you'll do when you're trying to look up any type of information, and that's because they have a ton of good content on their site. And so that's a principle that still holds true. Now, it has to be quality content. It can't just be, like the old days where you could write, horribly sounding sentences just for the purposes of search. No, they want quality content, but it's still a good tactic to, create useful content, write blog posts, write articles, have useful information on your site. Google will still reward that. And then the second core principle that still holds true, basically a link from site B to site A is a vote of confidence for site A, and that's a core principle around which Google's algorithm was developed. But the big difference today is site B needs to be a reputable site. You cannot pay site B to link to you. You want to have site B sort of voluntarily and naturally and organically linked to you as site A. Okay, I want to talk about something called bounce rate. And this is something that in the new era of SEO is very important. So bounce rate has to do with somebody coming to a page on your site, spending about 1 or 2 seconds, and then immediately leaving because they did not find what they were looking for. And what I have in front of me here is a screenshot of Google Analytics, which helps us, track valuable statistics. So a change that Google has made in the recent years is they will penalize sites where visitors will come to that site and quickly bounce back to the search results. Now, Google does not have, they don't use your Google Analytics data, but they do have the ability to see, okay, somebody clicked this link in search, but now is back at the search engine, meaning they did not find what they're looking for. And so bounce rate is important. What we do on a regular basis here at GigMasters is we look for pages that have bounce rates higher than 70%. And that would indicate that the content that we're putting on that page is, customers are not finding that information useful or relevant. They are going to the page and then they're quickly bouncing back. And so, in all honesty, it's doing you more harm than good to have these low quality pages that have high bounce rates. And so, it's not, I did say that content is king, but it's got to be quality content. So if you have content in your site that's irrelevant and showing high bounce rates, you're actually better off in Google's eyes just removing that, or take the time to rewrite it to be higher quality and see if you can get those bounce rates down. Google, one page on your site could actually hurt your overall site's quality in Google's eyes. So it's really important to keep your eye on that. Bouncing is for houses, not web pages, so just keep that in mind. Okay, so the other important principle with SEO is you want to try to see what your website looks like through Google's eyes. And a search engine can't really, at this point, see images, they can't see flash animations, they see text. And so actually, Google has given you a nice little tool allowing you to see your site through their eyes in text-only format. And so I've put some screenshots together, and you see here GigMasters, and you see that little green arrow. It's a little bit hard to see, but if you click the word cached in that drop-down menu, it's going to take you to this page for your site, of course, and in the upper right, you're going to see a link that says text-only version. You're going to get to a page that looks very unpleasant to the eye, to the human eye, but this is really what Google sees. They see links and they see text. And I encourage you all to do this, at some point on your own website and see what it looks like. See some of the text, and you may discover some things, not realizing that maybe certain text that you had hidden at the bottom of the page that might not be very relevant to the page. You may have too many links. I mean, I think you want to keep your links probably under 100, although some of our pages, frankly, we do exceed that. It's not an exact science, but it is a helpful exercise to look at your site through, at least your homepage, through the search engine's eyes, and you may discover some interesting things. Okay, hopefully you're all with me so far. I know I'm covering a lot of ground here. We will take some time at the end for questions. Okay, a couple of cool new things that Google's rolled out lately. Let me just go through these here quickly. First of all, authorship. So Google has given us a really cool way of having our thumbnail image show up in some search results. And so there's a technique for doing this. It's a couple steps. It involves a Google Plus profile. It's not too complicated, but if you're not super technical, you may want to reach out to your web guy who might be a bit more technical and have them, do this for you. But it actually really does help you stand out in search. It's called authorship, and it's those little thumbnails that you probably have started noticing in search. The second thing is something called rich snippets. You might have noticed these star ratings appearing in Google search results. And I took a screenshot of Yelp. We actually had this working for a while, and then unfortunately one of our programmers made a small change that actually accidentally broke it. We've now fixed it, but we're waiting patiently for Google to get this back in. But this is a useful thing. It's called rich snippets. I would definitely encourage you guys to do a bit more research on this. And then the Google carousel is something that's come on the scene very recently, just this year. And historically Google is, their search results are pretty just text only, and now they've developed this really cool, it's like a black strip along the top, and you can scroll it from side to side. It really does stand out, and there are ways for you guys as local businesses to make yourselves appear in this carousel. Again, it does relate to Google Plus pages, so I'd encourage you or your web folks to really spend the time to research what that is all about. It's very new, so we're all sort of learning about it as we go now. Page speed. This is critically important. You need to make sure that your pages are fast. And this is something where on our own site, I'll just periodically check a page, and if it's taking more than 2 seconds to download, I go and talk to our web guys, and I'm like, what can we do to speed this thing up? What does this have to do with SEO? Well, Google has officially announced that this is part of their algorithm, that page speed is part of their algorithm. And that's actually a rare thing. Google often will not reveal much about what their algorithm, how it's constructed, but they did tell us page speed is part of the algorithm. What that means is fast pages will rank more highly, slow pages will drop in search. And so there are a number of free tools out there that will help you measure your page speed. I chose one that we've used here. It's called Pingdom. It's a free tool. You just go to their site, you type www.yourwebsite.com, press test now, and it's going to run a whole quick analytic on your home page's download speed. Again, you want to shoot for 2 seconds or less, and there's been a number of studies that show that there's a correlation between download speed and site conversions. And so even putting SEO aside, it's good to have fast pages. Broken links are something that is a horrible user experience, and they do crop up from time to time. We face them ourselves, and that's because we're always changing our websites, and sometimes we accidentally break links, and we just have to make sure we go back and fix them. So you should be really constantly, weekly basis, checking your sites for broken links. Sometimes you may have another site that linked to you many years ago, and they were linking to a page. Maybe your page was contactus.html, and now your page is contact.html, and so the link that they have to your site is now broken. You want to reach out to them and say, look, hey, we've updated our links. Do you mind fixing your link so that it goes to our correct page? If you're not able to reach the other website, then there's a way for your web guy to your web person to put a redirect in place. So if they hit the old link, it'll automatically redirect to the new link. There's a number of tools out there, again, that will help you find your 404s. We like to use Google Webmaster Tools, which is free, and it will tell us where our 404s are. So that's an ongoing process. It's not something where you'll just fix it once and forget about it. You'll want to do this on really, honestly, like a weekly or maybe monthly basis. Okay, getting social. We've all, read all about social media, but within the context of SEO, social media is extremely important as a way to build incoming links. As I said earlier, links are still important for ranking. And so, there's a whole nother reason to use social media that's really more about connecting with your customers on a personal level. So that of course is the most important reason to do it. But secondarily, as far as SEO goes, you can use these sites to build natural links back to your site. And Google, as well as Bing, Microsoft's search engine, they view these links as reputable, as quality links back to your site. So, and it's not just Facebook, which, Facebook gets all the attention, but it's also Twitter, Pinterest, YouTube, Instagram, some of the secondary social media sites. I would highly encourage you guys to spend the time on a regular basis, interacting with your customers on the social networkings, providing them with some content, and hopefully they'll link back to your site, or they'll share links to your site among their friends or peers, and that will really help get things going. Go mobile or go home. You've heard all about mobile, of course, and for us, I'm continually amazed at how quickly our mobile and tablet traffic is climbing. few months ago I checked, it was like 20%. I checked the other day and it was in the 30s. It was above 30%. So it's climbing rapidly. Now, what does that have to do with SEO? Well, basically, as I mentioned earlier, Google does look whether somebody is clicking onto your site and then quickly bouncing back to search engines. And that's the same thing for mobile. If they click onto your site from their mobile phone and they get a site that's not optimized for mobile, they're probably going to bounce back to Google, and then you're going to, Google's going to view that as a ding on your site. We here at GigMasters, in all honesty, we're playing catch up. We've got a ton of pages on our site because we've been around for quite a while, and we're in the process of going back and making all of our site mobile and tablet friendly. So that's really a high priority for us here at GigMasters. But for your sites as well, it's very important to have a mobile optimized version. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Google Webmaster Tools at least once in this presentation. It is a free tool. I would encourage you guys all to go and sign up for it for your website. It's a couple step process. Once you're in there, you're going to find an incredible wealth of information. You're going to find information about your broken links. You're going to find information about, whether Google has found any of those duplicate content type issues that I mentioned earlier. They've really become very transparent in sharing information with us, with you guys, with everybody, as far as like what they're finding, potential problems with your site that could dramatically impact your SEO. So I would highly encourage everybody to go sign up for a Google Webmaster Tool account. All right, so we did cover quite a bit of ground here, and basically this is a quick summary of the core principles. A lot of these things, I will say, it's not an exact science. I'm hoping I leave you with some core principles to keep in mind. You might need, again, reach out to your web folks and bring them into this and get some help. But we are in a new era, post-Penguin, post-Panda world. A lot of these tactics that were okay previously are not acceptable, but some of the core principles like content is king still hold true. Okay, and I did want to leave you with some action items here. What can you do? You finish up this webinar, you go back, what can you actually do today? I would highly, highly recommend creating a Google Plus account. Google is using the Google Plus accounts in new and interesting ways. Just go ahead and do that. Number two, I say view your website on a mobile device. Just go check it out on a mobile. Is it rendering in a way that you feel is usable for customers? And if not, I really think you want to invest the time to have, if you have a designer who's worked on your site, go and do that. If you happen to be on WordPress, by the way, they do have a plugin that if you install the plugin, it will actually make your whole site mobile optimized. So that's really cool. Follow Matt Cutts. That's Matt's Twitter handle. Matt Cutts, I follow him religiously. When he makes an announcement of any kind, everybody in the SEO industry, we really listen closely. So I would encourage you, if you happen to be on Twitter, to follow Matt Cutts. And then, as I mentioned before, sign up for Google Webmaster Tools. A lot of valuable information in there. I would highly encourage you to go in today. All right. And at this point, I think what we want to do is open it up to some questions. I don't know if we'll be able to get to everybody's question, but we will follow up with folks offline if we don't happen to get to all your questions. So let's just see here what we have. Okay. So we got a question here from Jeremy. What should we look for when viewing text-only versions of our sites? Yeah, that's not an exact science. I think what you want to look for is two things. Number one, is there any content on the page that is not relevant to that page's general theme? And so let's say, for example, you have a page that's primarily about wedding photography. Look for the words on the page. Is there any content on there that is completely unrelated to wedding content that will throw Google off? They want to know what the theme of the page is. And so you want to, you want to make sure that the text is streamlined to be talking, focused on the theme of that page. And then maybe just link count, keep your eye on the number of links you have on a page. That's not an exact science either. I'd say roughly keep it under 100 links if possible. But that's, even for us, that's been challenging because sometimes links are part of your navigation. So those are probably just two things I'd keep in mind. We did get a question here about our mobile app. We actually are still working on a native mobile app. We do have a mobile version of our website for you guys that want to bid or book using the mobile device. Don't yet have a native iPhone app. That is going to be coming later on this year, hopefully fourth quarter this year, possibly first quarter next year. Okay, we got another question from Jeremy here. That's actually a really good question. What about pages that are mostly Flash driven? Any tips on SEO? Honestly, I would use Flash sparingly. We do have Flash on our current homepage. I'll tell you, the next iteration is going to have, we're going to use a different technology. Google, they're doing some things to try to, be able to read text that's within a Flash presentation. But two things on that. Number one is, at this point, it's not clear that they can, read the text that's in there. Number two, if it's slowing down your page, it's probably not worth it. So I would just use Flash very sparingly at this point. Okay, we got a question from Todd here, which is how often should how often should somebody update their content besides blogging? Should pages be updated? And how? Yeah, fresh content is critically important. And so, there's not an exact frequency. I think honestly, the more often the better. But of course, there's only so many hours in a day. So I would say, if a page hasn't changed in a whole year, you might want to go in there and just freshen it up a bit. Is there a way that you can kind of go in there and add some content that will just show Google that page is still alive, that there's, it's not just something from the archives. So again, not an exact answer in terms of how frequently. I would say as often as possible. Certainly, you don't want to let a page go 6 months or a year without having changed at all. Even small changes, Google will appreciate. Yeah, so this is an interesting question from Patrick. Is it true that Google algorithms are going to favor sites that have mobile versions first over others without? Yes, that's, I would say, here, I'll answer it this way. If somebody is, on their phone and they're doing a search on Google on their phone, and they come across two sites, one is mobile optimized and one is not, I think the users are probably going to bounce back on the one that's not optimized. And then Google's going to start penalizing sites. They probably already have. They're going to start pushing sites down in rankings that are not mobile optimized. So yeah, you're definitely going to want to have a site that works well on mobile to help your rankings. Yeah, what do we look for when checking our site on a mobile device? So again, one way to tackle that, because again, there's not an exact formula to it, but through Google Analytics, you can really judge how you're doing by the bounce rate. So you'll be able to see in Google Analytics, how are your mobile pages doing? Are you seeing like 70, 80, 90% bounce rates on your mobile pages? If so, that could be indicative of a user, experience issue with mobile. With a mobile site, you want to really scale down what you have. It should fit nicely on the screen. Just stick with the critical links. Get rid of all the other stuff. On the desktop versions of your sites, you could kind of put in a lot of stuff and it wouldn't, on the sides, top, bottom. But on a mobile, you really have to kind of keep it concise and just stick with the most important elements on the page. Oh, there's an interesting question from Darren about, is there a way to see, about if you are getting penalized? Yes, Google Webmaster Tools, they will alert you of penalties, and the messaging changes from time to time, but you'll see things that say basically, they've noticed a dramatic drop in traffic to a particular URL. Frankly, if you're penalized, you will see it quickly in your traffic dropping. Typically, sites that are penalized will see traffic dropping as much as 50%. Literally in one day, you'll see your traffic drop in half. And so any type of chart that you would do, let's say in Google Analytics on your site's traffic, if you just see this sudden drop off, you're probably dealing with a penalty. Yeah, so great question here from Jason about optimizing pages for words and then certain derivatives of words. And yeah, so basically the guiding principle here is, in the old days, you might have like, one page for magician and one page optimized for magic. Google's smarter now, so you don't need to have separate pages. You can consolidate the pages and you can use the related keywords on the same page. And Google is smart enough to know now that, disc jockey and DJ are the same. And things like magician and magic, you'd be better off just keeping those on one page. Have one high quality page instead of, like, say, two poor or medium quality pages. So it's really all about quality these days over quantity. Okay, and let's do the last question here from Dennis. In updating content, are we talking about our own sites or on our GigMasters pages? Yeah, that's a great question. I'm gearing this webinar really for your own websites, but the same principle does apply. So, the more that you go in and update the content that's on your GigMasters profile, sure, that will definitely help your GigMasters profile, stay high in the rankings. We are highly focused on SEO here, so we're doing everything we can to get your pages ranked highly. But certainly, yeah, you guys updating your GigMasters content, I think you would see a boost with that as well. All right. So with that, I want to thank everybody so much for taking the time out of your day to attend this webinar. We hope as a company to be doing more webinars like this in the future on a number of topics. So again, thank you so much for joining, and we'll get the copies of these webinars out to you early next week. Thank you.